the setup a bit, and just seeing how it goes. I think the lighting's a lot better than it was. I've changed the background a bit. I've moved my study around. I'm just going to test if the audio is alright. Sorry, the camera's a bit wobbly. I don't have a proper tripod. I've got this clip thing on this little table in front of me. So I'm just going to check the audio, and hopefully some people will join this stream. So I want to talk about some of the news of the last week in terms of film stuff. I might end up covering in shorts or maybe in traditional videos. So I was hoping some people can join this stream now. And if there's anything people want to talk about, I'm happy to talk about it. Let's see. No. So I'm just... The audio seems alright to me, but sorry if it isn't. And I'm a bit sweaty, so sorry about that. But I'll see if anyone wants to join the stream first, because I'm still experimenting with this at the moment, so I'm not too bothered about the overall quality of these streams, just because I'm still getting used to how this works and all that. But I know, for me it's a Saturday night, I think. Yeah, is it a Saturday night? Yeah. And I'd probably rather be out at the pub or something, but here I am. I'm looking at going to see... What was I going to see? Tomorrow I'm going to go see The Naked Gun. I've heard it's a really funny film, one of the funniest comedies in quite a few years, so I'm looking forward to that. So I've currently only got 2 people on the stream, so thanks for tuning in. Please feel free to ask me any questions. I've picked out a couple of news stories that I think are worthy that I'm going to talk about, and I'll see how this stream goes. And obviously thanks for supporting my channel so far if you're a subscriber, and if you haven't subscribed already, I would appreciate if you do. Help support my channel keep growing. Obviously I'm doing mainly shorts at the moment, but yeah. Well, how many stories have I got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 stories, and then there's probably going to be other stuff that comes up as we're talking on this stream. But currently got 3 people in the stream. Thanks for tuning in so far. Got any film news you want to discuss? Please let me know in the comments below. Give this video a comment, and I will respond. Yeah, still waiting for people to join the stream. It's probably not the best time to stream, if I'm honest, but as I said, I'm just trying to get used to streaming at the moment. And yep, 3 people in the stream, I appreciate that. But just give it one more minute to see if anyone else joins. Hopefully some more people will join during the stream, and give a few comments. How's the audio sound to everyone? Could you let me know how it is? I'm using my Yeti microphone, but I don't think it's flawless when I'm recording it through a mobile phone. I was trying to get OBS to work earlier, and I just couldn't seem to get it right. I'm not too technical in that aspect, so unfortunately I'm doing it through my mobile again. But Any comment on how I sound? You know, how does it sound to you guys at the moment? Just check where my... Yep, here's my phone. Down here. Okay, I'm gonna start, and I don't know how long this probably lasts less than an hour, to be honest. I've only got 5 stories I want to talk about at the moment, and if people suggest a few more, I might talk about them, but I'm going to dive right in. So, big news this week is that it's not really... We've had rumour for a long time around Spider-Man Brand New Day, and it's been confirmed that started production a couple of days ago. The film's a year from release, and Tom Holland is currently shooting it in Glasgow in Scotland, where he's just finished filming The Odyssey with Christopher Nolan. And there is a video from the BBC of... They've turned Glasgow into a New York street. It's quite impressive, and there have been some set leaks over what's happening in that scene. And Tom Holland did say that, you know, during this making of No Way Home, it wasn't the same level of filmmaking that he wanted, because a lot of it was green screen, and he wanted to go back to making like real films. And I think I think No Way Home was a very good movie and I enjoyed it thoroughly. I haven't watched it in quite a while, so my opinions might have changed, but overall I think that is a great film. But because, you know, it's shot on green screen and not on real sets, I think that suffered, or it impacted the film in some way. And the fact that they're actually shooting on real locations, like turning a street in Glasgow into New York City, I think is fantastic. And it appears like the scene they're shooting involves Punisher and Spider-Man fighting, because the news around Brand New Day was that John Bernthal was joining the cast, and it's been confirmed now, even though there was several leaks or just indications, Mark Ruffalo is returning as the Hulk, and that the movie is going to be a street level movie, but then you have got the Hulk in it, so I'm a bit confused as to how that will fit in. It seems like the Hulk's kind of thrown in there to be the big Marvel character, which they don't like big... they need a hero from the Avengers, like they thought Tony Stark was that for the first one, Nick Fury was that for the second one, and they just kind of need to have a character. And considering that Punisher hasn't appeared in the MCU movies before, they wanted someone other than John Bernthal to show up, so they've got Mark Ruffalo. But I'm intrigued to see how that's going to play into the overall movie. But apparently the scene, which you have to take with a pinch of salt, because I've just seen like Instagram posts of it rather than like reading any news articles, but it looks like Punisher is trying to kill someone who's being a prisoner escorted, and people are saying this is Mac Gargan. And it has been confirmed that Michael Mondo is also returning from Spider-Man Homecoming. Sorry, I have to think there, it's been so long. And he's going to be playing Mac Gargan and most likely Scorpion. And one of the leaks is that apparently Spider-Man is going to form a team of villains, including with the support of the Punisher, so to take on the Hulk, like Savage Hulk, which doesn't, to me, seem too much like a grounded street-level movie, but I could potentially seeing it work overall. And it's got the director of Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. I just got to find his name, I always said it wrong. Destin Daniel Cretton, who did Shang-Chi. And he was working on the Wonder Man show, which is set to come out. And he was initially announced to direct Avengers The Kang Dynasty, which should have come out by now had there not been the reshuffle with what was going on with Jonathan Majors as Kang the Conqueror, and then changing it to Doomsday, and then Secret Wars. And John Watts isn't returning. I think he's pursuing other films, and that's not a bad thing. And he probably wanted to step away from superhero movies in general, because John Watts was going to direct the Fantastic Four, but stepped away from it. And, you know, Cretan sound like, I think he's a competent director, and I know he initially said that he wasn't interested in doing Marvel movies, but I actually really liked Shang-Chi and The Legend of the Ten Rings, and I would like to see what he can do with Spider-Man. But yeah, it's also rumoured that the character Martin Lee is going to be appearing in the movie in some form, maybe as the main villain per se. And if you played the first Spider-Man game, the PlayStation 4 one, Martin Lee was like the main villain of that, and I think the logo for his, I've gone blank on what his group's called, but he's the character called Mr. Negative, and I think he has some cool powers, and it's not a character that we've seen on the big screen before, and that I don't think too many people are familiar with. I didn't know the character existed until the debut in the Spider-Man game, to be honest. And it appears he could be the main villain, and maybe he's going to use his powers to turn the Hulk into Savage Hulk, and that's what kickstarts the story. That's the speculation, at least, on what's going on. And it's said to take place before the events of Avengers Doomsday. And, you know, we got less than a year before this film comes out. And we did get a reveal of Tom Holland in the Spider-Man outfit today, or yesterday, I believe. Looks quite good. And I'm sure we'll be getting several just maybe set leaks, because, you know, if Tom Holland, what he said, they're actually going and shooting these movies on location, things are going to leak online, and that's fine, but it's just how it is. But I do think there's something about actually shooting on location. Like, just look at the other Spider-Man films, it does make a real difference compared to the green screen stuff. And even like the fight in Captain America Civil War at the airport, which was all done on green screen, I think the look of the film really suffers because of that. So if we're going to get plot leaks because of this, so be it. But if the film turns out looking like crisper and more realistic, I'm all for that. And, you know, as I kind of do follow this Marvel news a lot, because I'm a fan of the franchise, even though there seems to be a decline in the Marvel Cinematic Universe overall. But I'm going to kind of see it online, unfortunately. But to me, I've seen spoilers for the Marvel films in the past and still gone to see the film and enjoyed it, so I'm not too concerned about that overall. But what are your thoughts on the Spider-Man movie? Let me know in the comments if you've got any questions, and I'll do my best to answer them. Here we go. How are you feeling about the new Spider-Man suit? Yep, so the new Spider-Man suit looks fine to me. I did say that Tom Holland looks very different without... I thought he had surgery or something, because he's had some work done, to be honest. I'm just going to pull it up quickly to have another look. There's a short video of brand new day. So yeah, it got revealed 8 hours ago, and it's almost at 3 million views. And this is probably Tom Holland's first day on set, but the suit... Yeah, so the suit looks similar to what we got at the end of No Way Home. There's no surprise there. And I do like the fact that it's going back to a more grounded take, because this version of Spider-Man got like all his powers and his suit upgrades from Tony Stark early on. And in a way, the character suffered from that to some extent, because obviously I think you see the first suit he has in Civil War, and then you see that in Homecoming, his like homemade suit. You know, that was somewhat grounded, and this suit looks like to be a mix between the two. We saw at the end of No Way Home, so I do like the suit. They could have reinvented it a bit more. There's one I saw a video earlier today about an Alex Ross design he did for the Sam Raimi Spider-Man film, and that I did like that. But this is a very traditional suit that I think we're getting without it being too techy, which is what we've got from all the kind of suits we've got from Spider-Man in the past. Like the Iron Spider suit is just so high tech. I think it's silly, to be honest. So going to a more grounded take on what Spider-Man should be, in almost like this soft reboot, because at the end of No Way Home we saw the character, everyone's forgotten him, he's having to rebuild his life, he's not going to have access to all this technology. But yeah, I think the suit looks great overall, and as long as it's not too techy, and I don't think it does have any of that tech in it. You know, we have to wait till the film comes out. And yeah, so that's my thoughts on that. So I'll probably quickly talk on the rumour that he's going to build a team of villains to help take on Savage Hulk. We don't know if it's going to be Savage Hulk or Hulk's going to be his ally. And there's rumours that Punisher's going to get his high-tech sort of Iron Man suit, which doesn't make sense to me if they're going for this grounded street-level version. So that might end up being in the climax of the film, but I feel like we do really need this like street-level hero rather than this bombastic story, and I think that's putting the Hulk in it might impact that in some way. But I hope they can do it right, so we'll have to wait and see what happens. And there's always a chance that the symbiote could show up, and we'll see Tom Holland's take on the symbiote suit. Because if you saw in No Way Home, the piece of the symbiote from Tom Hardy's Venom got left in our universe, and that's probably going to play into the story down the line, possibly for Secret Wars, and maybe in Doomsday, but we'll have to wait and see. But moving on to the next story. So The Social Network 2 is happening. So 2010, David Fincher directed The Social Network. Jesse Eisenberg starred as Mark Zuckerberg, and the film got nominated for a lot of Academy Awards, written by Aaron Sorkin. And people said when all the Cambridge Analytica stuff came out and all the US Congress grilling Mark Zuckerberg came out, that they could do a sequel to it. And Social Network 2 has been announced, with Aaron Sorkin writing the script and directing the film. I think Aaron Sorkin has directed a couple of projects now. He was most notably a writer, I believe, for The West Wing is probably his best known project. I'm just going to quickly, off the top of my head, I can't remember all his films. Let's see, Aaron Sorkin. I know he wrote Steve Jobs' movie, which David Fincher directed. I actually think that's quite a good, very good movie, Michael Fassbender in the lead. And in a way, it's kind of disappointing that David Fincher isn't directing this movie, but Aaron Sorkin is coming in on his own as a director, I guess. What has he... He's only directed 4 projects. So we had Molly's Game, The Trial of the Chicago 7, and Being the Ricardos. But obviously he's written many other projects in his time, and The Social Network Part 2. But it does look like, yep, so here we go. Explores Facebook's internal practices, spread of false information, impact on teen mental health, and the connection to January 6th Capitol riots. And they're not bringing back Jesse Eisenberg to play Mark Zuckerberg. They could, like, the amount of time has passed where he could do it, but in a way it's probably a good idea to recast him, and it looks like Jeremy Strong is up for the role. Jeremy Strong has been, he's shown up in shows like Succession, and he was in The Apprentice playing Roy Cohn, the Trump lawyer, and he got nominated for an Academy Award for that. And obviously he starred in The Trial of the Chicago 7 as well, and Molly's Game. Just looking through his IMDb. But yeah, he's probably a good choice, and he's kind of exploding as an actor after his Academy Award nomination. And I know Brian Cox from Succession said he's an annoying method actor, and he finds it really fucking annoying, apparently, that to work with him on set, which I find quite funny. He does, I don't think he resembles Zuckerberg as closely as like Jesse Eisenberg did, and I'm interested to see how he's going to look on the film. And then there's other actors attached, but they're just rumoured at the moment. We've got Jeremy Allen White from The Bear, and Mikey Madison, Academy Award winner for Anora. She's also attached, but they haven't been announced what roles they're going to be playing as of yet. Let's bear with me a sec. But yeah, I think Aaron Sorkin can deliver. He's a good writer, and out of those films I've mentioned, I've only seen The Trial of the Chicago 7, which I felt didn't necessarily feel like he wasn't a competent director at all. It feels like from that film alone, I know Molly's Game is supposed to be quite good. There's a big difference between a writer and a director at the end of the day. So, but it looks like he knows what he's doing, and as much as I would like to have seen David Fincher return to direct, and I would be curious to see what it would have looked like if they did have Jesse Eisenberg return. And the fact they're calling this part 2 of The Social Network, what's the other? Are we going to get part 3? What else is Zuckerberg going to do in the next few years with Facebook that's going to be film worthy? We'll have to wait and see. But that brings me on to another project at the moment that's in production now, actually, is the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood sequel. So it was announced a movie. It was initially called The Movie Critic, and it was going to feature Cliff Booth, so Brad Pitt's character from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, returning. And it wasn't going to be a direct sequel to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but he would return. But apparently Quentin Tarantino scrapped that being his next project, as he wasn't satisfied with the script, or at least he didn't want this script to be his final movie. And Netflix ended up buying it for tens of millions of dollars, and David Fincher has been hired to direct the movie. And David Fincher currently has a first look deal with Netflix, and he's currently developing the Squid Game spin-off, the US version. And what else did he did? Mindhunter, he did the film Mank, is it called The Killer with Michael Fassbender? And I believe he's got one more film after this one as part of his Netflix deal, and I'm sure they might renew that, basically, because I think he's a big name director. And going back to, he was initially going to direct, no, did I say he did? No, yeah, so he was going to direct Steve Jobs with the Aaron Sorkin script, but apparently he demanded $40 million or 20. I think actually no, it's 20 million to direct the film, and they said that's ridiculous. And Danny Boyle ended up directing the movie. It still got the critical acclaim, and it was a script from Aaron Sorkin. But you know, it does seem like Fincher does have a lot of creative control of these movies he's working on at Netflix. You know, this first look deal probably gives him a lot of creative control. He's not someone I feel like, if Tarantino still wrote the script for this movie, I believe it's called like The Continuing Adventures of Cliff Booth or something. Let me quickly look it up. I did see there's a picture of Brad Pitt on set, and at first I thought it was David Spade, so I felt like he's looking quite different. Let's have a look. It's just a lot of producing credits at the moment. Yeah, The Adventures of Cliff Booth. And the overall, it just says, showcases more of Cliff Booth's backstory in his new role as a Hollywood fixer. And there's several. So far we've got 8 cast members announced, but so far we've only seen him on set, I believe. So Brad Pitt is returning as Cliff Booth, and we've got Holt McCallany, Carla Gugino, Elizabeth Debicki, Scott Kahn, Yahya Abdul-Mateen II. So it's got quite decent cast so far. I don't know if we'll get any other big name actors appearing in it, or maybe a cameo from Leonardo DiCaprio. I do doubt that very much, to be honest. I have strong opinions on Leonardo DiCaprio about his willingness to star in movies and whether or not he actually likes being a movie star, or even likes the industry, because he just seems to do these very expensive, big budget movies that aren't necessarily profitable, yet he walks away with $40-50 million paychecks, and I think that's somewhat unreasonable. That's just my opinion, though. But we haven't seen too much of this film. We don't really know when it's coming out. But I don't know if Tarantino is attached as the screenwriter as a script he's made. Whether or not he will have an executive producer credit or a producer credit, I'm not sure. I'll just look on Tarantino's IMDb to see if he does. It would be reasonable that he would have it, but we have to wait and see. Because he once said in an interview, I believe, that it's a lot of effort producing, so it's why he doesn't produce other people's stuff. He doesn't like being a producer on a film he's not directing. I know he's had his name attached as executive producers on stuff because he wants it to get seen. I think the Chinese movie Hero was one of them. He felt that was so good he wanted his name attached as a producer to get people to go see the film, for example. According to this, he is a producer on The Adventures of Cliff Booth, but I don't really think that he's going to be actively involved in the production of it at all. He's probably gone, here's the script, pay me my money, do what you wish. It does surprise me because I thought it'd be a bit more precious over his projects and the worlds he creates, to be honest. So I'm a little surprised that he's handing a script, I could see him doing a script, but a legacy sequel or a sequel to one of his movies to someone else. That does surprise me quite a lot. So I could see him of writing an original script and goes, this just isn't what I want to do. Go and make it. You know, he did write like Natural Born Killers and True Romance. They were directed by, Oliver Stone was Natural Born Killers, which I know Tarantino disowns, and True Romance was Tony Scott. So we've got that to look forward to, but I'm unsure how it's going to look compared to, like, Fincher doesn't have a distinct, or he won't be able to capture that Tarantino style. So Which isn't a bad thing or a slight on him. I feel like Fincher has a very distinct style and Tarantino has a very distinct style. And I don't know if this is going to feel more like a Fincher movie or a Tarantino movie. And I'm worried those minds clashing in a way. Not that it's a collaborative effort, it's Fincher interpreting the script. But would he lean into maybe trying to imitate Tarantino to make this feel connected to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood or not? So we'll have to wait and see. Next up, let's see. So Lee Isaac Chung, who directed Twisters, is reportedly being approached to direct the Ocean's 11 prequel. And that movie was set to go into production a few years ago and it fell apart, with Jay Roach directing the film. And according to this article, Linus Sangren of La La Land, Saltburn was being the cinematographer. And it appears they're looking for a new director. And it was an exciting movie because it's got two very famous stars attached to it, and it appears they still are. It's got Ryan Gosling and Margot Robbie, which is obviously another collaboration since Barbie and the other film they did, No, was it Gangster? No, that was Emma Stone. Did they do another? No, they did Barbie and... Actually, maybe they didn't do anything. I'm thinking of something else. But yeah, so reportedly they're doing... The film is set around a heist in Monte Carlo in the 60s, and it follows Daniel Ocean's parents, played by Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling. So a period piece movie sort of expanding the world of Ocean's 11 is somewhat... I think that's quite an exciting idea for a project, especially if they go all out on it and make it look like a period movie, or just like it gives that authenticity of a 60s movie. There are rumours that they'd have a young Danny Ocean and his sister. I've not seen Ocean's 8, the female spin-off with Daniel Ocean's sister, played by Sandra Bullock. But it wouldn't really make sense. Said the Monte Carlo races in 1962, they weren't born yet. I think it could be a fun way to sort of tell a story connected. It doesn't always have to be that solidly connected to the Ocean's 11 trilogy. They just have that name recognition and they can tell a great story. So I think that's exciting about it. And there's talk about another Ocean's 11 movie being developed, or I guess it'd be Ocean's 14. But I think Edward Berger, who directed like Conclave and All Quiet on the Western Front, was rumoured to be directing that. The one with seeing George Clooney return as Danny Ocean. But there hasn't been much news on that for quite some time. I'm just going to see. Obviously, he's attached to the Bourne Dilemma as well, which is, Matt Damon is in Oceans and the Bourne movies. Let me just quickly have a look to see if there's any news on the Oceans sequel. So George Clooney has teased Ocean's 14. Reportedly David Leitch could be directing that, but as this older article was saying about how the Ocean's prequel has been in development hell, and that can't be right. Ocean's 13 finished in 2007. That's Christ. Then the female-led reboot was 2018. But that's still 7 years, and we've still not had another Ocean's movie. I think Warner Brothers is still trying to expand their films. They want to have these recognisable IPs. I think this prequel movie is sort of a litmus test for expanding this world. And I'm sure these actors still want to work, and these movies do seem to be a lot of fun to do. But I'm aware there are several of the cast members have passed away now, so they won't be returning. Carl Reiner and Bernie Mac. So they have to be introducing alternate cast members to replace them, and obviously if it's going to be Ocean's 14, an additional member to the crew. But so yeah, just going back to the news article about this Ocean's prequel. Here we go. Yeah, so in the film, the Oceans will teach their children, young Danny and Debbie, the art of stealing from the rich. Set against the backdrop of the 1962 Monaco Grand Prix, the project was described as a stylish, old-school caper inspired by Hitchcock's To Catch a Thief. It doesn't really make, if you go on George Clooney's age, he was born in 1961 or 2, I think. So he won't have been born. And, I'd rather them just tell the story without having a baby, Danny Ocean, for example. They could have him as a 1-year-old, but I think that could work fine. But there we go, I've got a comment. So, I've never seen an Oceans movie. So, I've not seen Oceans 8, but the Oceans 11 is... I know it's technically a remake of a Rat Pack movie from the 60s. So, the Rat Pack with Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr., that lot. I can't remember all the members of the Rat Pack. But Steven Soderbergh directed Oceans 11, 12, and 13. I think all of them are great films. I used to think that Ocean's 11 is absolutely fantastic. Did have it on DVD, similar at the time it came out, and I remember watching it on Sky Movies as a child. I just really enjoy it, and I think it remains a classic. And then I believe Ocean's 12 came out, and it's a bit more... people don't like it as much. And they said, Ocean's 13 was better than the second one. But I think all three films actually stand out great. After going back to Ocean's 12, I think because it lacked some of the action or the excitement of what we got in Ocean's 11, especially as a child, teenager when I saw it. I think I kind of looked on it badly, but I did end up re-watching it, and I thought, actually, this is a very good movie. I think all three of them are fantastic. And the first one, obviously, about the heist of a Las Vegas casino. Ocean's 12 about the casino, the owner, Terry Benedict, asking them to pay back what they stole, or he's coming after them. And it involves I think it's Vincent Cassel plays the villain in Ocean's 12, the Fox or something. And he's trained by a legendary thief called Lamarck. I think the story is very good in Ocean's 12, and then Ocean's 13 is... I can't remember the character. Al Pacino plays the villain in that, and he tries to buy out the character Rubens, or he scams him out of a casino, and then it's about getting revenge on his character. So I think they're very good movies overall. I think Ocean's 11 is the best, and I do think they're worth watching. So if you do get a chance, I would definitely watch all of those Ocean's movies. And if you see those movies, I believe that you could see what they could do with a prequel, especially if they have big stars like Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling involved. I think that could work out really well. So Twister's director, looking at developing that maybe over the next few months, and potentially we could see that. I can't see it like, no, we're mid 2025 now, so anything coming out in 2026 really needs to be in production right now, unless you're Ridley Scott, who seems to be able to direct a film and have it at the moment. I know he's starring in that Star Wars film and Starfighter or something, and I'm not sure what else let's have a quick look at what Ryan Gosling has on his IMDb page, and it might give me an indication when this film could come out. Same with Margot Robbie, but I know Margot Robbie's doing a lot of producing work at the moment as well. And I'm going to talk about her in a minute because there's another news-worthy article I want to talk about. Yeah, so he's got Project Hail Mary, and then he's in production. Oh, it's not in production yet. He's in pre-production Star Wars Starfighter, which I think there's a good chance that might not come out. But if that goes into production, that's set for release 2027. This, what it's called, untitled Margot Robbie Ocean's 11 film, I could see that coming out in 2027 if it could go into production next year. So it's still quite a while off yet, but it's something I would end up watching if it does come out. But as I mentioned, it was in development hell for a few years, so it might not happen. But having, Twisters being a hit, having a new director have a new take on the script, for example, or asking for a rewrite, it might lead to the film getting some legs and eventually going into production sooner rather than later. And then moving on to the next thing, James Bond news. So I did a stream the other day about James Bond, and I kind of didn't talk about writers, and I didn't really have an indication of who could write it. And then they've now announced the writer of the Denis Villeneuve James Bond movie, and I'm kind of like, oh, why didn't I think of him? So it's Peaky Blinders showrunner creator Stephen Knight, and I've actually had I've actually met Stephen Knight. I got to interview him for his work on the show Taboo, the Tom Hardy project. So a few years ago, this would have been back in, I think this was November 2016, before Taboo came out. I got to attend a roundtable meeting, and I got to meet with Stephen Knight, Tom Hardy, and Ridley Scott. And yep, Stephen Knight, very, he has directed a few projects, but he's best known for a writer. I'll just pull up some of the projects he's written on IMDb. From Birmingham, so that's where he's always born somewhere else, but grew up in Birmingham, and you can see his involvement in the Peaky Blinders show. And Stephen Knight had been actually attached to write the Star Wars sequel movie that was going to follow Rey, but that didn't end up going into production. As well as, apparently he took a pass at the Man of Steel 2 screenplay, and James Gunn wanted to do something himself. Let's see. But he has done a lot of television. He's written there's a Peaky Blinders movie coming out called The Immortal Man. SAS Rogue Heroes developed for television. He did the show C, which is an Apple show, I believe, with Jason Momoa. I think, yeah, so, and he wrote Locke and Taboo. And let's just see what other films he wrote. He did direct a couple of things as well. Let's quickly look at that. Yeah, he seems... So, Eastern Promises, he did the screenplay. Locke, which is that Tom Hardy movie set in the car. Burnt, Allied, Taboo. Yeah, he's someone I didn't really clock on to write a Bond movie, but now it's announced. Not because I just kind of forgot. Oh, I didn't think he that was his realm of writing, but to me it's now obvious that he's like the perfect choice to write the next Bond movie. Now, the thing with these screenplays, so he's obviously a very competent writer, and I imagine the script he hands in, as long as he works with the director Denis Villeneuve, will be the one we get. But the way screenplays kind of work in Hollywood movies is like it's developed by a writer to do a first draft, then they'll get studio notes to kind of make changes they want, and then they'll hand in a second draft, and then usually they might get one more shot if they're still not happy with it. And after that, the writer will they will be paid for their work, of course, but then moved on, and they'll get another writer to rewrite the script. And then writers tend to throw out as much as possible in order to get the main screenplay credit on a film. And I believe writers can maintain a story by credit if at least 60% of the screenplay, or at least you can argue that 60% of the screenplay was from work they'd done. But there's a few projects that Stephen Knight is working on, but I think if he goes straight into writing a Bond project, and I feel like he could have it basically finished and polished by the end of the year. And obviously we're not going to go into production on Bond 26 until Denis Villeneuve has finished directing the Dune Part 3, which is currently in production. Yeah, Mr. Tomo Talks Games saying, I remember that good old days. Yeah, so that was 8 years ago. I got to go to the roundtable meeting with Stephen Knight. And a lot of my family are from Birmingham as well, so I feel like I have that connection. Very polite man, very friendly, fun to talk with, and I really enjoyed meeting him. I can't remember how long, because I was with two other journalists at the roundtable meeting with him and with all the other people I interviewed. But it probably lasted 20 to 25 minutes talking with him, and I probably asked about 6 or 7 questions, and I can't remember the details. I've got part of the recording somewhere. So, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was an honour to meet someone like him. And when I saw he was announced, I was like, oh, cool, I've met him. That's really wonderful for me. I've met and sat with the writer of the next James Bond movie. So I think he's going to do a good job, and I think he is a perfect person to take on the James Bond franchise. And as I said, hopefully the script he writes is what we get. But the studio might be very precious about it and not like what he's done and get another writer in. But Stephen Knight has, it's been confirmed that he is writing it. And I think there was another, I'm just going to look this up quickly, because I think he has commented on it, on the fact that he's writing the script. Here we go. So this is an article from Deadline. Stephen Knight has been announced as the writer. He said, "It has always been on my bucket list, and it's fantastic to be invited to do it. I can't wait to get started," Knight said. So that's on an interview he did on the radio. "I'm hoping that being a Bond fan for so many years, it will imbued into me, and I will be able to produce something that's the same but different and better, stronger and bolder." So he's asked, who do you think will star in it? He said, that's a very good question, and one I can't give you an answer to. So I do wonder if when he's writing this script, so he'll meet with Denis Villeneuve probably over the next few weeks on his days off from Dune Part 3, and the studio, Amy Pascal and David Heyman, who are the producers, have been hired by Amazon Studios to do the project. And they'll say, like, okay, we want it to probably include this, because they're never gonna, because this isn't a unsolicited screenplay, it's a big brand project, and the studio are gonna go, okay, we want this, this, and this. We want it to involve this aspect of geopolitics. We want it to visit these countries, for example. We want a villain who is like this. The Bond girl must be like this, and this is her. This is how we want it to go. So he is going to be given limitations. Yeah, soon I hope will be hitting the red carpet if this channel does take off. I've had those opportunity, as mentioned, with that roundtable interview. So to do stuff like that in the future would be fantastic. But so Stephen Knight will probably take notes on that from the producers, directors, and write a first draft, or even I can't remember what's called, a one-pager. I should know this. I've got a screenwriting degree, basically. Just to give it, like, what the overall story is going to be, and he can develop it from there. And I think he's perfect to write the screenplay, to be honest. So I'm excited to see how this project pans out and what Stephen Knight has to offer. And you know, a lot of people are big fans of the Bond franchise overall, considering, you know, it is a staple of cinema. And just moving on to, still in the Bond stuff, Tom Holland was asked about starring as Bond, and he said it's an honour to be considered or something. Let's get the full quote, because I don't want to misquote anyone. Yeah, he says it's the pinnacle for every British actor. But so I don't think Tom Holland is right for the role just because he's too famous, if I'm honest. Maybe he will get cast, but I think the fact that he's so well known for Spider-Man, and he has been attached to other sort of franchise, like they were trying to develop the Uncharted. Obviously, we got the first movie, and there doesn't seem to be a sequel on the way. But he's being so famous for Spider-Man is probably hindering his chance of being James Bond. I think he's a perfectly competent actor, and if he wasn't playing Spider-Man and was more of an unknown, based on his other body of work, I think he could do it. But having someone so famous play James Bond is immersion breaking, and I think that is going to cost him the role. But we'll have to wait and see. Moving on, so Margot Robbie is eyed for Tim Burton's Attack of the 50-Foot Woman remake. Margot Robbie, so this is an article from Variety. Says Margot Robbie is in early conversations to join Tim Burton's remake of Attack of the 50-Foot Woman for Warner Brothers. If a deal closes, Robbie would produce the new film with Lucky Cat partners Tom Ackerley and Josie McNamara, with an eye to star. News broke last February that Burton was working a reimagining of the 1948 science fiction horror movie, which follows a wealthy heiress who grows into a giant after an alien encounter and exacts revenge on her cheating husband. The Nightmare Before Christmas creator planned to direct as well as produce alongside Andrew Mitton and Tommy Harper. Kai Dolbashian serves as executive producer. Gone Girl writer Gillian Flynn penned a first draft of the screenplay, but has since exited the project due to other commitments. The producing team is currently searching for a new writer, and Robbie's involvement as lead actor would depend on the final version. So obviously Margot Robbie is currently I think is it so her. I mentioned her maybe starring in the Ocean's prequel movie, but I could see her doing this film, working with a director like Tim Burton. You know, she's never worked with him before, I don't think. But that's kind of a cool collaboration that I could see. And Margot Robbie is now, after Barbie, is such a bankable star and could probably ride that for a few years, even with a few flops. Like, she's currently starring and producing Wuthering Heights adaptation with Emerald Fennell, who directed Saltburn. And obviously, I think Margot Robbie also produced Saltburn, if I'm not mistaken, through her producing company. I'm just going to double check that. Maybe I'm wrong. Let's see. If I am wrong, I apologise. Yeah, she produced Saltburn and Barbie. And Promising Young Woman, which is Emerald Fennell's. She directed it, and she's directing Wuthering Heights. And an interesting story of Wuthering Heights, apparently Netflix offered the production company 150 million to make the movie, and they turned it down because they wanted a cinematic release, and they ended up going with Warner Brothers for I think only 80 million or 100 million, so they lost out on $50 million. But interestingly, like, if they want a cinematic release, that's a good thing, and stepping away from streaming giants is probably useful. I mean, the money, the film's going to get made anyway, whether or not it's profitable or not, and I'm sure it'll have a second life on streaming. But there's probably a bit more creative freedom with going with Warner Brothers, perhaps, and that's why they chose it. Like, maybe the fact if they go, we'll do it for less money, we get more creative control. But then they could have said that to Netflix and demanded a cinematic release, for example. But Netflix seemed to really not like having cinematic releases for their projects. Like, their films live on streaming platforms. Things like The Irishman. And I think to be eligible for like Academy Awards, and this does seem to be a Oscar bait movie in a way, you know, period dramas, English period dramas especially, sort of show up to the Academy Awards a lot. And it's like the studios don't, sorry, I'm going off a bit of a rant, but so Adam Sandler, for example, is the highest paid actor of like last year, but it's because of his deal with Netflix, even though his films haven't made a penny at the box office because it lives on streaming. But the deal he has with Netflix, which I thought it'd damage it, because I felt like a lot of his films are just too silly, and I liked them when I was a lot younger. But, you know, he has made some serious films. I think, like people say, was robbed from an Academy Award for the film Uncut Gems, for example. And I know Happy Gilmore 2 has just come out. I haven't seen it yet. But, you know, like his earlier films with the Netflix deal seemed to be a bit sillier, and I just thought, what is this? But despite them being silly, they are the most viewed films on the platform, and that allows them to pay for this exclusivity. And for some reason, I don't know the exact money, the monetary value that brings in, because you pay a monthly subscription to Netflix, and if you watch it, or depending on what you watch, does that get allocated to the creatives behind the films that are most watched? I don't really know. And obviously they have stuff that you're a big name, they'll pay a lot more and they'll take a loss on it, and then maybe they won't work with that person again. But this Netflix deal seems to have benefited the streaming platform so well with Adam Sandler, and it's even why they worked on The Irishman. They really wanted Martin Scorsese's The Irishman on their platform exclusively. They wanted the prestige of that, and it's worth maybe not being profitable. And I don't know the viewing figures of The Irishman, but from my understanding, these Adam Sandler movies absolutely dominate the like watch time for Netflix, so that's why they keep producing them. But so that seems to be working for Adam Sandler. But if Margot Robbie's production company, maybe she wants it to have a cinematic release and doesn't care too much about the money, and that's why they've turned it down. Because obviously they would release it in a cinema for at least 2 weeks in order to be eligible for the Academy Awards. As I said about these English period dramas are very Oscar bait movies, but that's not the same as it being exclusively in cinemas. And I don't really know how this movie will perform, to be honest. But yeah, I've kind of gone on a tangent about that with Attack of the 50-Foot Woman. Seems like I think she'd work really well in a remake of that. I haven't seen the original, but I know the iconography of that movie. It's something I've seen ever since I was a child, just like for old movie posters. So that's an interesting movie she could be involved with. It could fall apart. She might move on to other projects, for example. End up casting Sydney Sweeney instead as the 50-Foot Woman. We'll have to wait and see. But I think I've covered most of the news that I've wanted to so far. But is there anything else? I'm probably going to wrap up the stream quite soon, but if there are any other comments about news articles, I might just stay on for another 10 minutes or so. But if not, if I don't get any comments, I will probably wrap up this stream quite soon. But overall, I think I've enjoyed talking about this range of movie news over the past week. I haven't covered everything. There's probably a lot to talk about. But, the stream is it's just running over an hour now. And I could probably talk in future weeks extensively about a lot of film news and stuff I'd be excited about. But I think I've covered a range of stories. I feel like I have leaned towards like comic book stuff on my channel a lot because that's what people tend to engage with. But with like my trivia stuff, I do like to cover a range of all types of films. So I feel like I've got a good range of news stories this week on this stream. So I would like to sort of cover a range of topics again like this, depending on how well this stream is done. I've seen the viewers go up a little bit, not too high. And if other people watch this stream after it's aired and like it, I'll probably try this a couple more times because, as I said at the start, I'm still trying to get used to streaming. I was going to do this on OBS and I wanted to show the articles or clips, but I'm still struggling with that at the moment. I probably need a better laptop because I'm shooting this through my phone, and I could improve the audio down the line maybe, so I have to see if that works. Well, I think I'm going to wrap it up there, so I'll see how this video performs, and I'll probably look at doing this a couple more times to see if it's worthwhile, and if not, I'll go back to the drawing board and see what works in the future. But thanks for tuning in. I really do appreciate you taking the time to watch this stream, and if you could subscribe to me and go check out a few of my videos, I would really appreciate that. And that's it for now, so thanks for tuning in. Good night.